and welcome to Beyond the Bio. This week I am super excited to be joined by Andrew Hulbert, who grew a business from his bedroom into one of the UK's fastest growing companies in the UK. In just 9 years, he scaled the company to over 500 people, winning more than 40 awards and delivering £250 million in contracted services. He went on to create a $100 million in exit value for the business, which generated significant value for all. And today, Andrew spends his time sharing his story to inspire others and shape the future of entrepreneurship and leadership. And he does a few other things as well, which we are going to get stuck into because he's not the kind of person that sits still. Totally not. So, for anyone who doesn't know you yet, Andrew, how do you introduce yourself now that you are post-Pareto?
That's a very good question. Firstly, thank you. Really nice to be here. So I'm Andrew. I'm a 39-year-old that went out there, dedicated nearly 10 years of my life to growing a business, lived the dream, did the dream, made the multi-millions one day, exited when I was 37, and now I'm 39 and trying to work it all out and seeing what life is about. But yeah, I was your typical guy, left my corporate job, started a business from my bedroom with literally nothing, and then, managed to raise $100 million in value for it and exit. I bought a big farm over in Oxford where I live now. My kids are 4 and 6, and really last couple of years have just been reconnecting with my wife, my kids, my family, my friends, and financially securing everybody that I care about. Hopefully I have another 40 years or so to go, and we'll work out what the rest of that looks like. But right now, I'm really just happy to be here and telling the story.
Yeah, it's amazing. And we met at Ideas Fest, didn't we? So were we connected before Ideas Fest?
I'd heard of you for sure.
Oh, that's good.
Your
That's
reputation
good.
precedes you. There's no doubt about that.
We were sat on this really bizarre panel, weren't we, talking about selling our businesses and, all the things that kind of come with that. And we had a very animated facilitator, it'd be fair to say.
Animated is one word, yeah. They were a facilitator and contributor, I think.
Yes.
And I think a couple of the questions that had been answered by the facilitator before they got to the stage.
Yeah.
And no, it was a really interesting one. And actually, everybody I met on the stage on that day,
it was a good group.
I've connected with in one way or another. And everyone's come together. So and actually, look, the laughter in that audience. And you remember it was raining and everybody come into that tent and it was a bit hot and everything. And obviously the facilitator just really loved to take the mick, basically. So yeah, it was good. And I was wearing bright pink trousers. So what more do you want?
You were. I quite often on this show talk about how I've met my guest because I think it links back to networking, which I actually think is a really key part of someone's personal brand, which is something that you mentioned to me before we started filming. So yeah, I'm sure that'll come up in our conversations.
Well, and Rachel Murphy, who we met on the stage as well, I spoke at her event, her Christmas event that she does with the Grafter. And I was in a room with like 50 entrepreneurs, all running their own businesses, all wanting to grow their own businesses, mainly in the sort of 3 to 5 million turnover range. And it's a really nice size of business to be at that stage as you're trying to sort of look into the future. And look, my numbers all sound wonderful and it is all true, but actually there's a whole lot of hard work that goes into that, as we all know, let alone the exit process that goes with it as well. So I really enjoy talking to people who've already taken the step and they're like, right, how do I get from 1 million to 5 million, 5 million to 50 million and whatever. And yes, it's great to actually meet people like that now.
So what are you spending your time doing at the moment?
Yeah, I look at my calendar and it's very busy. I am a dad first these days. So a normal day for me, I have no alarm clock, which is amazing. And like having
the kids not wake you up, 4 and 6.
Well, yeah, they do at 7 o'clock. We train them well, and that's only my wife to thank for that. I used to sleep 4 hours a night when I was an entrepreneur, which doing that for nearly 10 years is hard work. I now usually sleep 9 hours a night.
Oh, heaven.
I can't tell you.
And do you feel different inside yourself for having that much?
Yeah. 100%, because I need a lot less coffee and caffeine. I need a lot less other things to sort of keep me going, a lot less sugar and stuff to try and get through the day. So yeah, and the first dopamine hit I get is around 7 o'clock. My daughter will run into our room and she'll just jump on me and give me a cuddle. She's 6 years old. And I very, very genuinely mean this. Money is amazing and money allows you to create lots of opportunities for yourself. Money doesn't make you happy. You have as many millions as you want. What makes me happy is that I get to be there in that moment. The fact I'm even there in the morning, the fact I've had enough sleep so I'm a nice person when I wake up and I'm not stressed or looking at my phone, And the fact that my kids want to come and jump on me and embrace, that is a magical thing. I bought a farm with the money, so I have some acreage in Oxfordshire. So I tend to take the quad bike out in the morning, and sometimes we'll pick some berries and make some jam and all that sort of stuff. So like life at home is amazing. And I get to do all those wonderful things. Like my mum and dad are in their mid-60s now. I get to go and have tea. Or if I just drop the kids off, my wife and I will go and have brunch and maybe pop in and have tea with my mum and stuff. I really, really love those things. And being from a, working class, proper council estate, originality family, putting myself right back in the middle of that community has been really important to me. But I am not resting on just doing all the lovely stuff, which is great. I am doing loads of podcasting at the moment. And really, I'm trying to raise my profile now to tell the story that, yes, the story is amazing, but there's a lot of hard work that goes into it. But I want to share tips, tricks, ideas with people so that if they think that entrepreneurship is for them and they have the right mindset for it, I can just help them to get on their way. Hopefully inspire people that you don't need to come from money or have loads of money to start something, but also just be cautionary about entrepreneurship because it's not for everybody. It is hard. We spoke about divorce. We spoke about depression before we came on here. All those things are very real, and loneliness and things. So I'm a very real, open, honest character. I have nothing left to prove to anybody. I just now want to tell the story.
And I do want to pick up on some of the activities that you did and that you're doing now and that you plan to do. But I just want to also go back a little bit in time because I'm from the Northeast, your accent to me sounds quite posh. And Oxford, I think of Oxford's really posh. Tell us a little bit more about the council estate upbringing, because how do you go from that into entrepreneurship? Did you have any role models? Like, where did the ideas come from?
I'm doing a bit of searching around that, if I'm honest, about when you go through a 10-year journey like we did, and we were growing 300%, 80% in a year sometimes. It was just bonkers. Look, my nan and gramp went on to Northway Council Estate in Oxford in the 50s in a caravan. They didn't even have a house. I often say, people have heard me say this before, I am very lucky I'm from Oxford because my accent is real. If I'd have been from East London or something, or the North, my opportunities in life may have been different because I would have really been typecast as that council estate person. My nan and gramp went on to have 3 daughters, so my mum in the caravan. Eventually, they then got a council house. They had a couple of foster kids as well. And my grandfather ran the community centre on the estate. And he did that for a good 20 years. And, there's a lot said about the mark of a person is their funeral and who turns up to it. And still the most well-attended funeral I've ever been to is his, because he helped so many people. Honestly, probably 250, 300 people there queuing out the crematorium to pay their respects. So and my grandfather on the other side, he ran all the caravan rallies because they all used to work at Rover back in Oxford, like this big car manufacturing place and Unipart and things. So that's my background for real. And when I grew up, early life, you won't sound like it, but it was rough in the first sort of say 15 years. In Oxford, we cycled everywhere. So from the age of 8, I was out on the bike. The age of 12, I had my first job. But look, I was smoking at 11. I was having sex at 14? Unprotected. I was drinking at 14 and a half, 15. I very nearly got murdered when I was 15. In a place called South Park in Oxford. 3 guys beat me up with a scooter handle, tried to clonk me on the head. Luckily, managed to move out the way, ripped the ear off the side of my face. I still believe now, honestly, if that would have hit me on the cranium, I would have died because they wanted me dead on that day. In council estate community, when you have a problem, you don't call the police, you call your family. So my ear was hanging off the side of my face, and I called my dad on the other ear, as I famously say, and he rushed up with his stack of tea towels, sort of put my ear back on my face, and then went up to the John Radcliffe Hospital and had it sewn back on. But after that, I started carrying a knife because I was ready to defend myself next time. My dad was in a factory for 42 years. He sharpened the knife for me, and I had it in my shoe. And with the same girlfriend who was with me when I got beaten up, we were in an under 18s nightclub, and I saw the guy that had attacked me, and I had the knife in my shoe. And I was already 6'3" and 18 stone at the age of 15. And I had the red rage. I was ready to murder him. I was actually ready to kill him because he had caused me so much pain like 6 months earlier. And I had the knife and I was in the club. And for whatever reason on that night, I made a decision that I wasn't going to do that because I just thought, how can I prove he was the guy that had beat me up 6 months earlier, or the 3 guys that had beat me up? So we left, and I didn't do anything. But that was a real sliding doors moment for me.
Got goosebumps thinking about that. Wow.
That is very real. So yes, I speak okay, but the first, say, 15 years of my life wasn't always nice. And I was with another girl from a different council estate, one of the other the other three.
A bit Romeo and Juliet vibes?
Absolutely, yeah, of all sorts of stuff and all the stuff that was going on then. It wouldn't be uncommon for us to be 14 years old, upstairs having sex in her bedroom while her dad beat her mum up downstairs.
Oh.
And I'd go downstairs and the mum would apologise for the sound. Like this, that's the reality. So accents and the way that you embrace people are very different. Now, look, where my life changed is when I got to 16, I got into sixth form. So all my friends from that early council estate life, that sort of rougher upbringing, they didn't get in. My brain is what got me into sixth form. And then we spoke just before I came on. I then met all my white middle class Oxford mates who all were going to go to university. They all had two parents. Their parents had good jobs and they all had aspirations for the future.
And were you always very bright, or did you work extra hard, or?
That's a good question. At GCSEs, I didn't work hard, but I was just bright enough to get in.
Get to the next stage.
Yeah, you needed like 5 Cs,
Yeah.
I think, at the time. I mainly got A's and B's, but I wasn't trying very hard. When I got into sixth form, I then used all of my characteristics of being a good organizer and everything for parties and girls. I mean, so literally any private school girl I could meet, I would go and network with. We'd have a party at their house on the Friday.
I was head of the social committee in sixth form.
We would have been friends 100%. You know, I used to steal bikes when I was a kid and sell them at boot sales and stuff on the weekend. And my dad had a guy at the factory that would come and take away the waste. But my dad would always look on the lorry to see what other waste was on there before the guy left. And often they'd have old merchandise that wasn't used. So my dad, this is absolutely true, once came back with 5,000 blue Texaco hats that were meant to go in the dump and didn't go. So me and my dad used to go to boot sales on a Sunday and sell these hats for 50p each.
Enterprising, love it.
That's exactly it. Or sell the stolen bikes that I'd stolen. So look, don't do any theft. It's not a good thing. I never got into trouble. But my life changed at that sixth form moment. And actually then the Cherwell school where I was happened to be like top 30 school in the UK. Just a normal school, but it was a brilliant one. And then really I didn't focus on my A-levels too much. I focused on having fun. The one thing I stayed away from was drugs my whole time. Drugs wasn't for me. So alcohol, yes, but anything worse, no. And I had good friends that went down very dark routes with drugs. And I saw it firsthand that wasn't where I wanted to go. So yeah, really that was sort of up to the age of 18. So I have proper working class roots. I've earned money every week since I was 12 years old.
Same.
Yeah, and I used to, on a Saturday and Sunday, I used to get up at 4 a.m. and cycle to the corner shop and stuff the papers.
That's what I did.
Did you really?
And it was miles away as well.
Yeah, mine was just down the road. It was lucky.
And I didn't have a bike. So I had to walk. But there was a boy who I think quite liked me, actually, looking back, who did have a bike, and he would always get there before me, do his stuff, his papers, do the paper round, and come and help me do mine.
Come give you a backie so you can get over to the thing. That was a good trick for us as boys. When I wanted to go to university, because my friends did, my mum and dad, they weren't on board with that idea because, frankly, for 18 years, I'd been in trouble when I was a kid. I had then been messing about with parties and girls and friends when I was a little bit older. So then they were like, how are you going to go to university and look after yourself? My mum was like, you can't cook, you can't clean, you can't do this. Because my mum is the most amazing mother who looked after me, still does now, and still wants to. But and I had some... arguments is a strong word. I had some disagreements with them that I wanted to go. And that my mum and dad were like, Andrew, firstly, we're not sure you're going to do okay because you've been messing about. Secondly, we can't afford for you to go. We don't have the money to do it. And we know that we need to support you through it. And thirdly, no one in this family has ever been to university before. So why are you breaking it? My mum and dad worked from the age of 15. So and my dad was in the same factory for 46 years until I gave him £250,000 one day so he could retire 5 years early.
How did that feel?
Amazing. If I may just tell that story briefly, I used to ride a quad bike. And I have a quad bike on the farm now, but I used to ride a road legal one. I drove to Barclays in Bicester in my shorts and flip-flops on a quad bike with no helmet and went in with a Sainsbury's bag and took out £242,000 in cash. Absolutely.
Did they let you do that?
They were very, very unhappy about it. Because they're like, what are you going to do with this money? I was like, I'm going to give it to my dad. And because they thought it was for drugs. And in fairness, if you'd have saw how I was dressed, probably it looked like drugs. And I genuinely, it was 50s and 20s, stuffed it all in this Sainsbury's bag and then put it in my backpack, drove to my mum and dad's house, got my dad a retirement card on the way back. They had no idea it was coming. And I went in there, and luckily my two sisters were there at the same time. And I gave my dad this card, and it said "Happy Retirement." He's like, "What on earth is this card about?" And I'd done a
And
calculation
how old
inside.
was he?
He was 62 years old,
Right.
and so he was going to work till he was 67. And so he opened it, and then my mum saw the card, started crying. She had no idea, and I just tipped nearly £250,000 all over the floor. And I've got these pictures of my dad laid next to stacks of £50 notes. He's laid down like Bruce Forsyth on the side
Really?
like that.
I bet he got quizzed when he tried to bank it.
Well, so I kept the slip because he also banked with Barclays. So he went back. It took them 2 hours. They had to count every single note back in because, of course, money laundering. And I've subsequently come to learn if you take big numbers like that out, HMRC and things get alerted to that, and they don't love it. So if anyone wants to do something nice for their parents and they're millionaires, maybe do something that's different around cash. So, all those things are very real, and that sort of family background. And yes, accent and the way people look, and I'm very tall and all that sort of stuff. So all those things, they act in your favor.
Yep.
But I think also you need to use all those things you have in a positive way. You have to use them in your favor one way or another. But yeah, that's the story.
That's
so
brilliant.
Oxford's a very different place.
So going back to when you were building the business, what were the practical things that you were doing day to day or week to week that were building your personal brand alongside the business?
Yeah. If I just tell you a little bit about how I started. So I went to uni, and in my second year, I did an internship with a property services business. And then after I finished university, which I worked really hard at, and I got my first, I went to work for them full time. So just as a graduate, I was on like 18K. But because of that working class mentality, I was just doing loads of hours, taking on all the responsibility I could. Within 4 years, I was ops director. I had 250 staff working
wow.
for me. But I was
Didn't have to do all their appraisals, did you?
well, if we did appraisals in that company, they were lucky. It was only a 6 million turnover business, but it grew to 12 million in the time I was there. And SME, for anyone listening, going to work for an SME is such an amazing place to learn your trade, because I learned finance, marketing, HR, sales, commercials. You do all that, invoicing, etc. We got bought out by a big German business, and I did 2 years for that organization. We went from like 10 million to 8 billion overnight, and it just destroyed the business because that little SME wasn't able to function in the big business. So I did genuinely, when I was 27, I handed my notice in, 3 months notice. I actually told them I was going to go and start a competitor, hoping that they would put me on gardening leave. But they didn't. And so for 3 months, I just told every customer I could speak to that I was going to go and start this business. And then, in August 2014, in my bedroom with a laptop, just trying to work out what I was going to do. But I didn't have any clients lined up or money or investors or friends or anything. It was just, that was my idea. However, and here's the big however for anybody who hasn't started yet or is going to start. For the 6 years that I was at Rollright and then Billfinger in that business, I was networking and building my personal brand, not really realizing how valuable it was going to be as I got a bit older. For me, there are 3 ways to build personal brand. Number 1 is network. And by network, I mean 3 or 4 nights a week, go after work somewhere or go to a breakfast meeting or a lunch meeting or whatever, find out where people are networking within your specific sector and just be there. Do not go and sell to people. Do not go and try and basically don't go and have a very genuine conversation with people about themselves. Everyone loves talking about themselves. Everyone loves flattery. Flattery works on 100% of the levels that you can do it on. Just chat to people. What's their dog like? What's happening with their family? What do they hate about their job? What are their insecurities? Get to know people personally. I would never, ever walk into a networking event and try and sell anything to anybody. I would leave a great impression. I was a nice guy. And then a little bit further down the line, if I ever needed anything or if they needed anything, the connection was there. So number 1, networking. I cannot stress that enough. And people ask me if I had to start again, what would I do? The first thing I would do is network. I just put myself in the middle of whatever's going on. Number 2 is writing articles. So find out who your trade press are for whatever it is that you're doing. So in property services, there are about 5 magazines. So I just got to know all the editors. I went to networking events where the editors would be, and I'd meet them and I'd have a chat. When I wrote an article, I would then say, hey, great to see you last week. We chatted about young people in my sector or whatever. I've actually read an article about that. Would you put it in the magazine? And they're like, yeah, absolutely. We'd love to hear more about young people. But you see, this hasn't cost me
So
anything.
simple, but who thinks to do that?
And honestly, if you're doing that like 3 or 4 times a week, Yeah, I mean, there's so many bits to unpack here. You have to accept rejection, right? It's always not gonna. There's many times you're gonna submit stuff where they say no, but look, even if you submit 8 and they say yes once, fantastic. You just start building it. And then the third one that worked really well for me was awards. We met at awards a couple of times as well. Get out of your own way that you are not good enough for awards. You are. I promise you are good enough. You just need to write a great entry. It needs to be a very sincere entry. It needs to be a very honest and vulnerable entry. Don't just get ChatGPT on its most basic form to do it for you. When we were writing awards early doors, you didn't have AI. So actually it was always very genuine. And I think I mentioned Frankie James gave me my first award with the Great British Entrepreneur Awards in 2018. One Sunday afternoon, I just sat and wrote all afternoon and submitted it, didn't even check it. And I won my first award outside of the facilities.
And what a community that is. And that leads to all the networking bit. And that's how we met at Ideas Fest.
It was. And a big shout out to Frankie, as always. But I was at the second VIP table this time at the Great British Entrepreneur Awards. So I'm looking over and Simon Squibb is there and Daniel Priestley and Dodge Woodall, and I'm sort of waving at them from the sides. And one day I'll be on their table, but when they're even more famous. Put yourself out there. And actually, in our sector, there are loads of awards. They don't all have to be glitzy, glamorous ones at the Grosvenor.
There's an awards program for every stage of every business, isn't there? And it's picking out the ones that are credible, yes, that create further opportunities, that have that community element, because there are some scammy ones as well. That's something we've talked about a lot on this show.
May I have a controversial opinion on the scammy ones? Please. So I always get emails saying, hey, congratulations.
Yeah, you've won.
You've won UK most customer-focused facilities management provider, June to July 2026 or whatever. I'm like, fantastic, thank you. I go straight onto Etsy and I buy an award from Etsy that is a customizable award for about £35. I take all the details out of that award that they've given me and I get an award and I put it on my trophy shelf. Really? Absolutely. Now, a little extra hack, if you like. We used to go to a lot of black ties at Pareto because we won loads of awards. We won approaching 50 awards, right, in our time. We've been there and done it. Probably applied for 400, by the way. It sounds like a big number, but a lot of effort went into that. This is absolutely true. We would take those fake awards that you had to pay for, that we got made up, and we would take them to the black tie do's with us that was nothing to do with this award we were holding and have a picture with everybody in their tuxes.
But you never paid the scammers the grand or whatever. No. You just did it.
I just did it, yeah.
Oh, I love that.
I don't care what the scammers think about that. There may be some copyright
Nothing they
issue.
Can say, really?
No, well, they probably don't even know.
Yeah.
But so do not pay the £600 to them. Just get an Etsy one made up. And I also promise you that Etsy ones are way nicer than the shit that they're going to send you on that. And then marketing is all about taking a very small part of the truth and extrapolating it into something bigger. So look, those 3 things that I've just said, basically write your own articles, network as much as you can and do some awards stuff and take some pictures. That is a great way to build your personal brand. There is almost no cost to it.
And when you were doing that, it wasn't a proper strategy. You just naturally felt that these were good opportunities to take.
Yeah, I understood very early that if I was whatever my career was going to look like, and when I was 21, I didn't know I was going to start a business. When I was 27, I knew that networking was going to be powerful for me regardless of what happened, and I knew for selling in the future or getting a job with the big companies or whatever. So it was just a strategy, and it just worked really, really nicely. Whether you're going to start a business or not, that is good advice. Go and just be amongst it, but also just be a nice person. Just forget selling to anybody. There's so many stories about Pareto, but our number one philosophy in the early days was we don't employ dickheads. Yeah. And that was the whole point. And if anyone was being a dickhead, we'd say, stop being a dickhead. It says on the wall that you're not going to be a dickhead if you work here. So I think for people who are starting out trying to build a personal brand, just go out there and do it. And I promise you, writing the articles and the awards will give you credibility well beyond anything that you can create with loads and loads of money. And then start to build in the brilliant marketing and the PR stories and everything that goes with it.
Love it. I love that. This was part 1 of a 2-part series with Andrew. I hope you enjoyed our conversation. I absolutely loved it. Tune in for part 2 next week. Thank you for listening. If you're serious about growing your profile, take our free profile assessment quiz to see where you're at right now and get hints and tips on how to improve your score. You'll find the link to the quiz in the show notes. If you've enjoyed the episode, it would be mint if you'd subscribe, like, and leave a review. See you next Monday.